ギアセカンド、ギアサード、ギアフォースバウンドマン、フォーススネークマン。
Hello, my name is John, and today on Mono Story we're going to be talking about Luffy's Gear 6 and potential future forms. So let's get into it and find out what it's all about. Now, originally, Luffy had a devil fruit known as the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or the Rubber Rubber fruit. This was considered to be a paramecia as it had given Luffy the ability of something that is not normal, but rather superhuman, as it made his body more elastic, or as the name suggests, rubber. However, in recent times after the Wano arc, it was now being confirmed that the devil fruit is actually a Zoan fruit named the Hito no Mi model Nika, or the human fruit model Nika. And now with this new classification of the fruit, as well as its classification of it not being a paramecia but a Zoan, it changes what Luffy is able to achieve using this fruit. Now, the first thing we need to understand is, how do Zoans work if they are similar Zoans but they have a different model? So an example of this would be, let's say, Marco and his ability to change into a phoenix, and Kaido and his ability to change into the Azure Dragon. In both cases, these are mythical Zoan fruits, and they act very similar, if not the same, if you were to leave everything else out and just leave the transformations in. So we're not including powers or abilities of flying as an example. So this sort of aspect proves that Zoans, and in this case mythical Zoans, act the same. So if we take that same context and we move it to Hito no Mi, or the human fruit, we now need to look at who else can use a human fruit. And the closest thing we have is Sengoku, but we know we haven't really experienced his fruit other than when he changed into a giant golden Buddha. So it's not really a good comparison. The better comparison would be Chopper and his ability to transform into the reindeer. And we know that Chopper has a lot of different forms. He doesn't call them by gear though, he calls them by points. So guard point, strength point, monster point. So if we look at Luffy's gear system, we can say that this works the exact same as Chopper's point system. So an example would be Gear Second gives him speed, like a speed point. You could say Gear 3 gives him expansion, like an expansion point. You would then get to Gear 4, he gets animal points. He gets the Bowman transformation with King Kong and the snake transformation through Snake Man. And then you get Gear 5, it gives you more of a flexible point. So these 4 points or transformations are similar to Chopper, if not the same. So we now can understand that yes, Luffy's devil fruit is acting in the same way as Chopper's devil fruit. So now we know that Chopper's abilities and way of using his devil fruit are able to be compared and used as a comparison in order to understand how Luffy's devil fruit works. Through this setup, we now know that we have to answer a further 3 questions. How, what, and why? And so we can start with, how does Luffy get to Gear 6 or get to these new forms? So if we look at, again, Chopper, he uses the Rumble Balls to get these new points, and he's only able to do them for short periods of time, depending on his training level. So we know in the past, during the Water 7 arc and the Ines Lobby arc, that when Chopper used his monster point, he was unable to control it. Therefore, it created a very difficult situation where he became sort of the enemy that needed help and be rescued. However, in the Fishman arc, he was able to control his point, and now he was able to use it at that point, the monster point. So we can now say that if you have no training or lack of training in that point, you are unable to use it. So let's take that thought of logic and take it to Luffy's gear system. In Gear 2, Luffy will pump the air through his legs. In Gear 3, he will push the air in a specific part of his body to expand it. In Gear 4, he will push the air throughout his body to get King Kong, if not Snake Man. And in Gear 5, which was very tough for me to figure out, but I figured it out, was he lost consciousness, slowing his breathing down. In all cases, his breathing is rumble balls. That's the direct comparison. So to get to Gear 6, he needs to change his breathing. So two methods I have for this is, one is it's the air that he is using. Therefore, when he does the dance, the Joy Boy, Sun Nika, God dance, he will gain a different breathing style through that dance and get to Gear 6. The other aspect is if he is using air, but he's dancing in front of a fire, fire produces smoke. Smoke has a higher volume than air, making it heavier in his body. Therefore, he would be able to get to a different form using smoke rather than air. So, if we now have the understanding that there is a potential way of him, Luffy, to become this new form, what will he become? And the biggest aspect I have is that in all of these Hititonomi forms, they all become big. So Sengoku, we only have one form, he gets big. Chopper, out of all his points, he's using the one that makes him get big. So in two cases, we already have two characters that use the same devil fruits type and are able to get big. Yet Luffy is still not able to maintain a huge form, or that really tall, giant-like form. And so we know he can do it because Gear 3 shows us he can get expansion. Gear 5 shows us he can get big, or like a giant. And we know that Joy Boy 800 years ago in the war fought with the giants. We know the giants treat the sun god Nika or Joy Boy, whoever they were worshipping, as a god. As the title would suggest, the sun god Nika is a god, right? So we know that. And we know when we first see Imu, he sees a giant straw hat. And the logic is that if you were in Gear 6 or in a giant form, you wouldn't be able to use the regular straw hat because it's too small and you would crush it. But the big one would be able to be used. Now again, it's a foreshadowing thing. I'm not sure if it's if the form can go big or not, but it would make sense. Now, the reason being as to why we need to get a new form is because Imu already knows Gear 5. He's been here for 800 years, if not longer. He's had time to train and he's already beaten it once. So he's going to be like, oh, welcome back. Gear 5. Oh, we're doing this again. I did this 800 years ago. We can just do the same thing again. Luffy has to come up with a new form. So it may not even be that he gets to this Gear 6. He may be able to change his forms where he puts two of them together. So we might see a style where Luffy uses Gear 2nd and then he's using Gear 5. Or he uses Gear 4 with Gear 5. Again, it's very unique and it's still a lot is up in the air because there's still so much that we need to learn about not only the sun god Nika, but what he actually looked like. Was he like Joy Boy? Was he someone else? And if that's the case, all devil fruits with these models should give you the ability in at least one form to change into that specific form. So again, going back to, I know it's not exactly the same. Phoenix form, Marco becomes a Phoenix. Azure Dragon form, Kaido becomes an Azure Dragon. And same goes for all the other Zoan fruits. So Luffy will need to become this Sun God Nika in order to defeat Imu, because Imu already has all of the understanding of what Gear 5 is, or this flexible form. And if that is what the Sun God Nika is, then Luffy will have to go above and beyond. So Luffy will need a new form or gear in the future. And that is my thoughts on Luffy's Gear 6 and potential future forms in the future. Now, I know that it's very early days, but in the future we may get more information, especially heading to the final arc. We need to be able to fight Imu, and there's so many other things happening still in the story that we may not get to the point where we get to Imu for a very long time. So there's still going to be a lot of things happening. However, I think this part of the story where Luffy gets a Gear 6 is very possible, and I'm looking forward to the future. And if it does happen, what are we going to get? But I want to hear what you think about Luffy's Gear 6. Is it possible or not, and why? So please write down in the comment section below. My name is John from Mono Story, and if you haven't already liked, subscribe, press the bell button, please do so. I want to thank you so much for watching today's episode, and until next time, I will see you on another Mono Story.